What is up, everybody? Brian Zane here with my review of AEW Full Gear 2024. I just want to get this out of the way right now. These green marks on my hands, they're from just a weekend crafting home improvement project. I wasn't, fist fighting the Hulk or anything. This is some paint, so couldn't quite get it off in time for this review. But I did watch the pay-per-view on Saturday, and I certainly have some things to say about it. Of course, we gotta talk about the real reason so many people tuned into Full Gear this weekend. I'm talking about the match at 0 Hour between QT Marshall and Big Boom AJ of the Costco Guys, one of the biggest social media acts right now. I can't believe, well, I can believe, but I also can't believe the reactions before and after the match took place. Before the match took place, oh my God, the vitriol people had about this. Oh my God, it's the worst idea. This is David Arquette and WCW levels of bad. This is the worst. It's the dumbest thing. It's going to set back wrestling, this and that. And then the match actually happens, and you've got AJ, who is, an indie wrestling vet, so he knows how to work, and he's going against a guy in QT who makes pretty much everyone he works with look good. And I think it was just a very well done spectacle. And you listen to that crowd going gaga for everything the Costco Guys were doing. And the pop the Rizzler got for coming out. The sight gag of him coming out with Paul White, by the way, was astounding. And then the match happened. And it wasn't like an amazing 5-star classic. It's not going to be on the same level of matches you're going to see on the main card, but it still told a great story, and the crowd was super into it. The reaction I saw from people about the Costco Guys joining AEW and doing stuff with them is not unlike how people treated Bad Bunny when he first got involved in storylines and, he's going to wrestle and everything. Now, I'm not saying to those of you who are going to go on Reddit and say, oh my God, Brian Zane compared, Big Boom AJ to Bad Bunny. I'm not. I'm comparing the reactions to these people when they come in, where these people are going, I've never heard of this person, and I don't get this person, therefore nobody will, and it's going to be terrible for wrestling, And then you actually see it happen, and you see it work. And, it just proves that there's this huge divide between what people think they know, the fans online and everything, the people who scream the loudest on social media, and the reality of the situation of wrestling, where there's no one way to capture the hearts and minds of an audience in wrestling. It can be a technical masterpiece, it could be a hardcore brawl, it could be, spot fests, and it can be goofy stuff like this. Like, as long as there's a story, and as long as there's a reason for people to care, and there's a little bit of showmanship, people will dig it. Whether it's, the wrestling fans, or you want to try and catch some of those casuals. You might get some people joining in, people who are fans of the Costco Guys, and they tune in to see what AEW is all about. You might get that, and I think that's why they do things like this. And the Costco Guys are really good at self-promotion. They've got a huge presence online. Why wouldn't AEW want to do this? I think it's so silly, the people who got so up in arms about it. And at the end of the day, it's going to be like, it's going to be like Bad Bunny. It's going to be like Snooki. It's going to be like Stephen Amell. It's going to be all these different celebrity things that so many people are going to cry foul and shit all over in the preamble. And then 9 times out of 10, especially in this era, I feel, when the outsider comes in, they actually do a pretty decent job. And so, I don't know why we get so upset about it, but there you go. I think this QT Marshall AJ match, it was fine for what it was. And AEW and the Costco Guys all got something good out of it. But let's move on to the main show. That is where the match ratings will actually take place here. We begin with the 4-way match for the AEW Tag Team titles. Private Party defends against the Kings of the Black Throne, and the Acclaimed and the Outrunners. I love the Outrunners right now, man. I think they have one of the best success stories in AEW at this point. Their gimmick is super popular. Just the commitment to the bit of the throwback and the 80s aesthetic. The fact that even their intro now has a 4x3 filter on it. It's great. The Youngest Men Alive is a great moniker for them as well. There's a great moment here in the match where Turbo, who's not the hugest guy in this match, by the way, the way he absorbs Brody King's offense and hulks up for a bit, then he runs off and gets laid out. I mean, that's great shtick. At one point in the match, Nigel McGuinness makes this pitcher-catcher joke in reference to Anthony Bowens. But then a couple minutes later, he botches his like potatoes come from Iowa reference in commentary. So it all balances out. There's a lot going on in this match. A lot of people are getting their stuff in. At one point, everyone's just beating on Brody King's ass like it's a 5-on-1 attack. Private Party with some stereo 450s on the Outrunners. We get some arguing near the end with the Acclaimed. They're both legal somehow, and then they get this spot where they almost violate the Outlaws rule when they try and cover each other to end the matchup. Caster tags himself in, and the crowd is very much anti-Caster in this. There's much ado about it, but then Private Party turn it into gin and juice, and they win the match. They retain the titles. I give this one 3.5 stars out of 5. I thought this is a fun opener, like 4 very distinctly different teams coming together to make a nice little multi-man goulash. I think that, you know, everyone got a time to shine here. I think that it was funny because after the Wrestle Dream review, I was so certain that, oh, Private Party is definitely going to be splitting soon. And then who would have guessed that it's actually the Acclaimed who are en route to breaking up faster than Private Party, and those guys are the tag team champions now. I think that it was a good turnaround for Private Party. It's mighty convenient that they had that pinfall win over the Young Bucks like 5 years ago, so they can kind of go back to that in the storytelling now. It's almost as if that the last 4 years of cooling off of Private Party was intentional, all leading up to this moment. But I'm glad they were able to circle back and rebuild Private Party a bit here, and I'm glad that they are having their time in the spotlight now as the tag team champions. And like I said, it was a very solid opening matchup. We hear from Orange Cassidy backstage. He's confident he's going to win the championship tonight in the main event. Then up next, MJF takes on Roderick Strong. The story here in this one is it's the Undisputed Kingdom against MJF, essentially. They're still trying to salvage that storyline as best they can, and Roderick Strong was the first one to get to 3 wins instead of Adam Cole, and that's how Strong earned the shot to fight MJF in this show here. But yeah, they're doing their best to try and salvage this thing. They've spent all year trying, and then Cole, God bless him, cutting a promo trying to explain how it still all makes sense, despite the fact that he was definitely the bad guy in that situation when he first betrayed MJF. Becomes a babyface through no fault of his own while he was still injured. So yeah, the way they've tried to tie it all together, they've done their best, and I guess we just have to, you know, the blow off with MJF and Adam Cole, I am looking forward to because they have had good work in the past, but we've had a long, confusing road to get there, and so this is one stop on that road. MJF grabs the mic before the matchup, and he denigrates the people in the city, the fans there, like a true heel would. He says, "I'm shooting movies while Roderick Strong's mom is shooting his dad," and so, ooh, he went there again, and that's how the match begins. Strong runs out to fight him early on. Strong hurts his own hand doing a knife-edge chop, and he hits the ring post instead. And so that becomes MJF's big target throughout the match. It's attacking the hand, attacking the fingers, really exploiting the injury here. Eventually, Strong hits that half Nelson backbreaker to give himself a break. MJF tries to mock Adam Cole in the corner, but Strong catches him, hits another backbreaker. You can see MJF's chest is welting up like crazy from all of Roddy's chops here. And the story here is Roderick's hand versus MJF's back. And they keep going back to that repeatedly because Strong's hand is injured. He can't get the submissions on tight enough. And MJF, his back gives out during certain moves, so he's still struggling. And that's the story here. Strong with a big combination of moves, and MJF still kicks out. MJF hits the salt of the earth, gets that locked in with a little bit of joint manipulation. Strong taps out, and MJF wins. After the bell, MJF Pillmanizes Strong's arm, and only then Adam Cole runs out and chases MJF off. The rest of the Undisputed Kingdom and Kyle O'Reilly are there as well to check on Strong, and Kyle shoves Cole and gets in his face about it, blaming Cole for all of this. I think it was a pretty strong match. The story of injury versus injury, very well done. And then, you know, the post-match stuff where Kyle is blaming Adam Cole for Strong's injury. I think that, you know, the idea of MJF and the betrayal that Cole did to him has set off MJF on this warpath here, which again will kind of further justify and validate Adam Cole. That's the way they seem to be going about it here. The sins of Adam Cole kind of coming to roost make it a bit more layered, makes Cole a bit more of a conflicted character. So yeah, it's interesting the way they've been salvaging this, let's just say. TBS title match next as Mercedes Moné defends against Kris Statlander. I didn't get a chance to talk about this since all out, but I just don't understand, why they turned Kris Statlander babyface so fast after that Chicago street fight where she was definitely the heel. She betrayed everyone's fave in Willow. She wins the street fight, and then she immediately just turns face and drops Stokely as a manager. Just kind of it just seemed like a very abrupt change. Didn't really feel earned, but I think that she has done a good job playing the babyface foil for Mone here in the build to this, and in this match especially. I think this was a great match because Kris showing the strength early on here against Mercedes. They fight their way to the apron, and then Mercedes hits this crazy Hurricane Rana off the apron onto the floor. A crazy landing for both ladies, and there's a CEO chant from the crowd, as well they should. That was a pretty well-deserved chant. Mone just spamming the knees throughout here. Many meteoras. One time she does it into the steel steps, which that also, I don't know if that looks more devastating for the person taking it or the person giving that move in the steel steps there. Just again, spamming the moves. She finally gets caught on one by Kris midair and shoved back into the corner. Statlander comes back with the big power moves, hits the chaos theory, but Mone hits a rope break. Kris powers out of the statement maker, but still not able to put the champ away. Mone hits another meteor. This time she gets one from the top rope. Statlander with a big spinning slam. There's more back and forth. Statlander missing the 450. Mone goes after the leg viciously. We get this frog splash on the leg. Kris kicks out of that. We get two of those backstabbers and the Mone maker, and Kris still kicks out of it. They are really treating her like King Kong in this one because she will not go down. Stat even hits this electric chair drop, which looked sick. Mone fights out of certain doom by biting Kris's leg, and she ends up rolling her up to win and retain. I'm going to give it 4.5 stars out of 5. I liked this match a lot, and I think it's easily the best match Mercedes has had since joining AEW. I think just she should exclusively wrestle stronger, taller ladies from now on. People who can be a good base for her offense. I think that's one of the biggest issues that Mercedes has had in her early run, that she's been wrestling too many smaller women. And I think that her offense and the way she sells doesn't look as good. So I think that some of her best matches historically, whether it's here or in WWE, have come against larger, more formidable opponents. And so I don't know if that was the secret sauce to this one, but Kris did a good job as well. And, again, I don't agree with how they made her a babyface so soon after her feud with Willow, but at least she does play a good babyface. And in this environment here, where the crowd was honestly pretty split here between the two of them, but I think Kris still was overwhelmingly the babyface here. They wanted to see her win, and then her fire up and the way she kept fighting back was very impressive. And unfortunately, that does kind of become the trend for the rest of the night, but at least in this moment here, this first time you see it, it actually works really well. Up next, Jay White takes on Mr. Leaves is Plants himself, Hangman Page. I don't think that Hangman can ever truly be booed as a bad guy, because one, I think his character is fairly justified, and two, you look at the way he just engages on social media, whether it's Twitter or Blue Sky, what have you. It's how do you not like this guy? He's so lovable. Leaves his plants. Both guys just laying into each other in the early going. Page very aggressive, going after Jay's ankle. Big heckin' fallaway slam off the second rope by Hanger, but Jay starts to fight back, going after Hangman's leg now. We get half Nelson slams on the apron on the floor. Hangman slipping out of the shin breaker and goes after the ankle some more. We get this ankle lock on the floor for the longest time as White is trying to crawl his way to the ring, and Page is just going along with him down the ramp. That was pretty sick. Back in the ring, we get this wicked-looking dragon screw by White on the ropes. White kicks out of 2 consecutive deadeyes. We get counters upon counters into an ankle lock, into the Blade Runner, and White wins the matchup. After the match, Hangman attacks White on the stage. It gets broken up by officials. Hangman punches Christopher Daniels on his way out. I give it 4 stars out of 5. This is a pretty aggressive matchup. Great work with two guys who know each other really well. I'm kind of surprised that Jay White continues the unanswered dominance over Page in this rivalry. He even kind of trolled him afterward, after the bell. But yeah, I was expecting Page to win this one. These guys are both in very peculiar spots right now in the company, because after everything Page did in that really epic rivalry with Swerve this year, he's just been kind of on this losing skid ever since then. And I feel that hopefully that will precipitate or proceed into some big shift for him into the new year. And with Jay White, it's frustrating because he is so good, but he is in a roster full of so good people. And so it's just really a struggle to find an opening to really break out and get like a real, run-defining angle, a run-defining rivalry. I'm not sure we really had that yet with Jay White since he's been there. And I hope we get that soon. I hope that both guys have something nice going for them in the future here after this match. Up next, the grudge match. Former friends become bitter rivals as Will Ospreay takes on Kyle Fletcher of the Don Callis family. Interesting looks for both guys here. Ospreay, the good guy, dressed in black. Oi, I'm the Punisher, bruv. And meanwhile, Fletcher is the baddie dressed in white with his golden crown atop his head. And a great line by Excalibur on commentary where he says that he has not earned the crown yet. Ospreay looks strong at first, but then Fletcher cuts him off and takes over. Fletcher hits this big brainbuster on the outside, one of the many, many, many big moves you are going to see in this matchup. Fletcher gets his full head of steam, throws himself out of the ring. Ospreay follows up with a big flip-de-doo to the outside, picture perfect. They're trading chops. Fletcher with very loud strikes here. Ospreay even opens himself up. He's like, okay, bruv, we're gonna do the chop off. That's what we do in wrestling. Boom! Super kick right to the face. People will fall for that shit every time. At one point, the Oz Cutter gets intercepted and Fletcher hits the last ride, but Ospreay kicks out. Scary moment where Fletcher almost spikes himself on the way out of the ring, so then Ospreay finishes the job with a tombstone. The crowd is just loving this match. I mean, they're really hanging on a lot of what these guys do. At some point here, they just break out in these insane sequences. We get one out of a hidden blade attempt that the crowd's really responsive to. We also get another crazy sequence like a minute later. We get the Styles Clash and a kick out, a hidden blade in a kick out. And just when I notice, oh my God, Fletcher's been slapping the shit out of his leg in this matchup, we get a leaping tombstone off the apron and onto the steps. That was nuts. And honestly, that probably should have been the finish. But of course, it's a match with Will Ospreay. You know that ain't going to happen. So he gets hit with another pile driver in the ring. Still not enough to beat him. And at that point, I'm like, okay, come on, buddy. This is getting into Ridiculous territory here. They do a little more damage to each other. Then we get a top rope brain buster to Ospreay for Fletcher to finally win. Now in comes Mark Davis, Fletcher's former partner, in his ridiculous-looking shoes to check on Ospreay as Fletcher and Callis revel in the victory. I might have given this one 4.5 stars out of 5. I think I'm going to give it a 4 ultimately. I see what they were doing. I know what they were going for. But for me, it reached a point of diminishing returns. After that tombstone on the steps, I felt that probably should have been it, but they kept doing more stuff after that. And I feel that okay, we just saw that with the women's match. We see it again here, and it's also far from the last time we're going to see it in this show. So now the returns, they be diminishing for me. And so at that point, I was like, okay, starting to check out now. Wait, let me know when we get to the actual finish. And so then we did that, and it was great. It was a great win for Fletcher. I think it's obviously the biggest win of his career, and I think a lot of people had their doubts that he could hold his own against Ospreay, and he did. And I get what they were trying to do here, but it just at some point it reached this moment of ridiculousness for me where I'm like, okay, you started to lose me. It's time, once again, for Mariah May's Champagne Championship celebration. Don't know why she's not wrestling on this wrestling show, but here we go. Mina Shirakawa introduces her friend to the stage, and she's rocking a big shiner on her left eye, and she says, it's worth it to have this, to have killed the entire women's division. No other competitor can touch me. And as they're about to fill the glasses, my kids kind of came into the office. They were kind of coming in and out during the show, and they were in during this segment, and my youngest kid watches this and goes, what is this? Isn't this supposed to be wrestling? From the mouths of babes. I loved that line. So then they have their champagne toast. They're doing a little dance, but then suddenly Mariah May grabs the champagne bottle, and it looks like she's going to bash Mina with it. But Mina sees it coming. She ducks the bottle. She kicks it out of Mariah's hand, which was pretty badass to do in heels. And then Mariah spits at Mina, and then they have this moment, a couple of beats, and then Mina tackles Mariah off the ramp, and they crash through one table on the floor. It looks like they were supposed to go through 2, but they only went through 1. And then Mina's got a bloody mouth, and then she rubs her mouth all over Mariah's forehead, And that's how the segment ends. So yeah, that wasn't the greatest moment of the night. I think they really should have saved that for Dynamite or Collision, because that I don't think belonged on the pay-per-view. I think it's ridiculous that Mariah May has had more championship celebrations than title matches on pay-per-view. But, again, I get what they're doing. We're going to put Mina against her now. I think a lot of people were maybe expecting someone else to show up, like maybe Toni Storm. Like, I do believe that her retirement that she announced is a work and she will be back. But, I guess obviously not this soon. I thought this might have been it, but no. Just interesting. The way they booked Mariah May since Wembley is not the strongest. When you consider that there have been other strides made in like the women's division, like what they've done with the title since Mariah has won it has been pretty disappointing. Up next for the TNT Championship, the Jungle Goat, Jack Perry, defends against the most shipped man in NXT despite not actually working for them, Daniel Garcia. There was a great preamble before Garcia's entrance here, little hype package where it's showing like a young Daniel Garcia and you hear his mother's voicemail in the background. I thought that was very emotional. Got some goosebumps watching that one. We get some early Gaga in this matchup, a lot of kind of like stalling, running in and out of the ring sort of thing. Things do escalate pretty quickly after the beginning though. Perry drops Garcia with a draping DDT on the floor, then another one. Perry works the neck extensively in this matchup here, and Perry even drops him back first onto the apron, power bombs him through the timekeeper's table, then dumps a very full can of trash atop him. There's this real tense moment where Garcia's gonna get counted out because he's so messed up, and you got Daddy Magic on commentary screaming at him, trying to get him to rally and get up. Do it for your mother, Danny! And he finally just barely gets back in. And it's a hard-hitting match. There is drama in this matchup, but this crowd is tired. They are exhausted after Fletcher and Ospreay, and probably for that matter, the Mercedes Kris match as well, because that was full of drama. But yeah, Ospreay Fletcher, and then that, kind of weird segment between Mariah and Mina, and so they're just a little gassed. And so they're not responding very well at a certain point in this matchup here. Jack grabs his title and brings it into the ring. He gives it to Daniel and offers himself up to get hit with it. The referee takes it and walks away, but Jack gives Garcia a low blow. We get the running knee, but it's not enough. Garcia blocks the kick and turns it into a cool-looking pile driver. We get another kick out. Many chops. Garcia hits a pile driver, then hits the Dragon Slayer locked in. He cranks it back. Jack taps out, and Garcia is the new TNT champion. I'm going to give this one 4 stars out of 5. I think it told a great story. I think they lost the crowd for a bit. Again, I think that had more to do with just the pacing of the show and the fatigue they were feeling than the actual match itself. But they got him back by the end, and Garcia, again, more of that like big move fuckery that happens. It was getting me just a little bit sick of it by the end. But I think it ended strong. Good to see Garcia get this pivotal career win. People have been wanting him to see a win that big for a very long time, and I'm glad he got it. I think that, Perry had an interesting run with the TNT Championship. Just the whole scapegoat character this year, I think, has been a very interesting experiment. I think it is mostly paid off. I like Jack Perry as a character, and I liked this cool custom belt that he hand smelted. So I think, I feel the TNT Championship has to be the most like customized and the most color swapped belt in wrestling in its very short history. Even if you include the first unfinished draft, it's just had many looks throughout the very short time it's been around. Konosuke Takeshita defends the international title against Ricochet, and I wonder if these two should have reached out to each other and coordinated what they were going to be wearing for this event, because they are a bit matchy with their red, white, and black outfits. But the match itself is very solid. It's a great story of just like Konosuke being the larger, more powerful, yet still freakishly agile wrestler going against Ricochet, who is just all speed and all agility. It's a great clashing of styles with this matchup here. And, Konosuke showing the power early on. He boots Ricochet out of the ring. He takes a mighty tumble, just using his power, throwing Rico around for a while. But eventually, Chet hits a springboard elbow, starts to build a comeback. He is selling his back a lot here, but he still manages to bust out some awesome some flip-de-doos, hits a nice 450 into the ring. At one point, Don Callis gets up from commentary, just chills at ringside for a bit. Rico blocks one knee strike but takes many other strikes. We get this big, crazy German suplex off the top rope, followed by a big clothesline, but we get a kick out. And again, I feel, this is starting to affect me. The pacing of these matches and the structure of the matches is starting to wear me down. And, we get all these crazy big moves, and I know this is not new to this show. It's not just a new problem here. This has been an ongoing problem for a long time. But for whatever reason, on this night, it was starting to wear me down. We get a shooting star by Ricochet, and Takeshita with a big drop onto Ricochet's neck, and they're all kicked out of. Konosuke puts the knee pad down for the Wagamama. Ricochet comes back. He goes up top, but Konosuke cuts him off, hits him with a big top rope Falcon Arrow to win and retain. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5 because, again, I'm getting tired of this formula. Tell me how the top rope Falcon Arrow is more devastating than the bump that Ricochet took off that top rope German followed up by the big lariat. I don't think you can. I think it's just both guys showed out. They both came to impress. It's very similar to the other matches. They're all getting their stuff in, but it does get to this point where, okay, I think you've hit like the biggest fucking move you can, and they just keep going there. They can't all be epic comebacks of finisher kickouts and stuff. You can't have a bunch of matches like that. You can have one, maybe two, but when you have so many of them throughout this thing, where it feels so samey to me, it does start to drag. But luckily, this next match is not like that. You've got Swerve Strickland taking on Bobby Lashley, making his AEW pay-per-view debut. I think AEW picking up, MVP, Shelton Benjamin, and Bobby Lashley in quick succession was a great move, and I really look forward to seeing what the Hurt Syndicate can do in AEW. Like, yes, it is derivative of the Hurt Business, which in itself was derivative of the Beatdown Clan and Impact, but, I don't think AEW can do any worse than, what WWE did with the Hurt Business. I think that is one of the biggest drop balls the company had during the pandemic era, was how they treated the Hurt Business. And I think it sucks that they broke them up so soon, and just whatever push they gave them, it just disintegrated so quickly, and it didn't make any sense. And I feel that there was a lot more money left on the table with that. And so I don't know if the Hurt Syndicate is going to reach the same level of success that they technically did in WWE gained, but I don't think they can do terribly with it. And so I think them having the opportunity to continue that story in AEW and just see where it goes, I'm definitely open to that. And so I think that Swerve did a good job in this matchup, putting Lashley over as the new big, strong guy. We see Lashley showing off that power. The stalling suplex on Swerve was pretty cool to see. We do get some Shelton chicanery a couple of times outside the ring, but then he gets ejected after getting involved one too many times. Swerve hits a DDT on the apron. Nasty fall for Lashley. Swerve hits the stomp on Lashley through the announce table. I did laugh when Lashley kind of hopped up to meet him. We get a Swerve stomp and a kick out. Swerve gets into MVP's face on the outside. MVP backs off. Lashley suplexes Swerve on the floor and spears him through the barricade. My goodness. We get another spear in the ring. The Hurt Lock is applied. The referee calls it. Lashley wins. Then after the bell, the Hurt Syndicate throw poor Prince Nana into the ring, and Lashley puts the Hurt Lock on him as well, leaves them both laying as the match is over. This was as close to a glorified squash match as you could get, because Swerve certainly looked strong, or good in defeat at least. He was getting a lot of offense in on Lashley, putting up a fight, but Lashley, you went into this match knowing where this was going to go, and Lashley just showing how he could be, how strong and dominant he can be, and then putting the extra heel hurt on getting poor Nana afterward was pretty well done. So yeah, I think that Lashley, they've done a good job establishing early on just how devastating Lashley can be. I think it's the right way to portray him. And again, hopefully good things can come with the Hurt Syndicate in AEW. Time for the main event for the AEW Championship as Jon Moxley defends against Orange Cassidy. It's a return of sorts to when they feuded over the International Championship a while back, but things are very different, especially for Moxley. I like the way they've been telling this story, how it's like a fight for the soul of AEW, how Moxley hates promotes what AEW has become. And now Orange Cassidy, really, for better or for worse, really symbolizes and is emblematic of what AEW has been. He's a very polarizing wrestler. It's funny to see people kind of still crapping on the idea of Orange Cassidy in the main event, basing all their information off of like pre-2020 information. Like, they still want to discount him when he's more than proven himself as a very good wrestler, and I think that anyone at this point who is still doubting his abilities, they're just kind of blowing smoke. It's not real. But the way they've been building this as Orange as the reluctant leader of the fight back against the Death Riders, I think it's been pretty well done. It does kind of show at the moment a lack of other top faces ready to challenge the Death Riders, but I do like the way they've kind of built Orange up for this match. Orange jumps Moxley mid-intro and is all over the champion. They're brawling around the ring and into the crowd. Orange starts getting some juice and we get a paradigm shift on the steps. By the way, have you noticed that when's the last time Moxley has bled in a match? Because that used to be the big dig people had on him, was, oh my God, he bleeds every match or whatever. But he's not the one getting color in this title match. And I can't remember the last time he's actually bled. So I don't know if it was a response to the criticism or it's just showing that, hey, he doesn't need to bleed to be devastating and to be this killer character, And I think when he does bleed next, it is going to be a bigger deal. Moxley is wrestling aggressive and dirty, even for him. It bites a forehead. He works the bloody wound. Orange is knocked outside, but we start to see him fire up again. I like this point here where he's about to get counted out, but Orange is just back up. He's like, come on, cut the shit. Let me get back in there and let's keep fighting. It's that casual way that he is still getting amped up and fired up. That was kind of a nice little moment there. Moxley digs his nails into Orange's back. Looks so painful, and Orange scratches back. They get into a strike off. Orange defiantly putting his hands in his pockets. He hits the Orange punches. He's got the fighting spirit, but here come the rest of the Death Riders, including the perpetually in gear pack. They are creeping, but then they're cut off by the conglomeration. Rocky Romero dives onto everyone. Marina Shafir's in the ring with the briefcase containing the championship. Then Willow Nightingale comes out to a fucking Road Warrior pop. Oh my word here. Orange has the case. He dinks Moxley with it. Moxley barely kicks out. Orange has some fire left. Suddenly, Wheeler Yuta hits him from out of nowhere. The paradigm shift by Moxley to win the match and retain. Hey, finally, a heel that wins dirty for once tonight. Then after the match, Yuta's got a bottle of cleaner, I guess, and pours it down the face of Orange. Ooh, is this symbolic of the cleaner, Kenny Omega? Hangman Page comes in with a chair and dinks Yuta with it. He faces off with Moxley, but then Christian Cage shows up and lays out Moxley. Hangman reluctantly hands Cage his contract. Christian looks to cash in, but then Jay White comes out to almost no pop and hits the Blade Runner on Cage. Then the Death Riders beat up Jay White a little bit, then they leave. The Death Riders are about to head into their truck, but then the Darby Mobile comes in and crashes into it. The baddies run away. Darby Allin pops out and yells at them as the show fades to black. Okay, so I give the match itself 4 stars out of 5, but everything afterward with the post-match was awful. I'm sorry. Again, I get what they were trying to do. I understand, hey, the Death Riders have made a lot of enemies, and now you've got all these people who all kind of have, valid claims to the championship. Jay White, Hangman Page, Christian Cage, and Darby Allin are all kind of the next ones to maybe be gunning for Jon Moxley here, and that was kind of a way to do that. But I think they could have done it a little bit differently. They didn't make things so confusing and so disjointed. That moment after when they beat Jay White up to when they go to the scene in the back where the Darby Mobile comes in, that hung for so long and felt so awkward. And it was is this the end of the show? It was just, that was not well done. It could have been managed or timed a bit better or blocked better just to make it have it end more on a big note. It just kind of end on this kind of note. It was very deflating, I think. I didn't expect Orange to win this one, but then everything after that was what are we doing? It was a lot. It was a bit of a confusing end of the show. My grade for AEW Full Gear 2024 is a B-. I think that in a bubble, most of these matches are good to great and could easily be show stealers. I think that for me, my enjoyment was a bit deadened by the fact that so many matches followed a similar formula of like all these crazy near falls up until the finish and stuff. Again, I think that you have that maybe once or twice a show, but this show had like 4 or 5 of them, and some of them were in succession, and it just gets exhausting. And maybe it was just me. I know that there are others who don't feel that way about the show, and they have the energy to, be wrapped up in it like that often, that many times in a show. But on Saturday night, I just wasn't. And so, again, I can recognize that a lot of these matches were good to great, but for me personally, I was just getting a little tired. And there were some matches and some segments that I thought didn't necessarily belong on this show. Not the strongest pay-per-view they've done this year, certainly some head-scratching moments, but still a lot of good matches to get a lot of good things out of, and hopefully they can build more momentum going into World's End next month. But what did you think of Full Gear? What did you think about the Costco Guys, about Big Boom AJ versus QT Marshall? I want to hear about all that in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and hit that bell icon for all the notifications. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.